And a newsreel.
We're following a dramatic move from Finland overnight as leaders say they will apply for NATO membership without delay. This morning, we have new reaction from the Kremlin. Plus, there are several other major headlines from the war in Ukraine, including talk of another Russian annexation, the first war crimes trial announced against a Russian soldier. The U.S. confirms Moscow's use of hypersonic weapons and new reporting on U.S. guidelines concerning intel sharing with Ukraine. Jonathan Lemire is still with us. MSNBC contributor Mike Barnicle joins the conversation along with Willie, Joe, and me. Also here at the table, Pentagon Press Secretary, retired Rear Admiral John Kirby. Great to have you with us.
It's great to have you here. You know, yesterday we saw the Prime Minister of Great Britain give assurances to Sweden and Finland. That seemed like a precursor for what we're now hearing from Finland. So we had asked the producers to pull that reel just to give people a bit of history about how big this is. Barnacle and I can remember, you can remember, I'm serious, during the Cold War, Finland, the Finlandization of this country or that country, meaning they stay completely neutral lest they have the Soviets invading them. Talk about how big of a deal this is.
No, it's historic. There's no question about that for Finland, but also, you know, potentially for NATO here. You know, Mr. Putin, one of the things he said he didn't want was a strong NATO on his western flank, and he's getting that. It's actually, it's growing in strength. It's growing in deterrence capability. And look, I won't get ahead of the alliance and Finland's accession, but if they join it, that's another nation here.
But Finland and Sweden, man, they're
both very
military
serious
assets, right?
They are. These are modern militaries. They may be small, but they are powerful, and they have terrific capabilities. They're already sort of using NATO standard kind of equipment and systems, and so integrating them into the alliance would not be very difficult at all. In fact, I mean, we routinely operate and train with the Finns and with the Swedes, so you know, interoperability is just not going to be an issue.
Yeah, it could be seamless. Here is that developing news overnight. Finland's leaders say the country must join the NATO alliance, quote, without delay. In a joint statement this morning, the country's president and prime minister said, quote, membership would strengthen Finland's security. The leaders also said that they hope the steps needed to make this decision will be taken rapidly within the next few days. The statement comes just days after the Finnish government submitted a report in Parliament saying joining NATO is one of its options for national security. However, Moscow is hitting back, saying Finland's move to join NATO is, quote, definitely a threat to Russia and would not make Europe or the world a safer place. It is expected that Finland will be given a quick accession into the military alliance, along with Sweden. Finland, which shares an 830-mile-long border with Russia, has traditionally been militarily neutral and has had good relations with the Kremlin, but the war in Ukraine has led it to rethink its security, Willie.
Absolutely. And just your assessment, Admiral, of how this is going, because we got from the Foreign Ministry of Russia a couple of days ago this rosy sort of Baghdad Bob-esque assessment. Things are going just as planned in the Donbass. We're making great strides. The Pentagon expressed some skepticism about that. What is your honest view of the way their new, over the last couple of weeks, invasion in the East is going?
It's very incremental progress at best, and they're meeting a very stiff Ukrainian resistance in the Donbass. So what you're seeing, Willie, is almost trading towns and villages a day almost back and forth. Now, that said, I have to admit that over the last 24, 48 hours, the Russians have made some small progress, particularly past around a town called Popasna in the very eastern part of the Donbass region. And they keep trying to move from the north down from a town called Isium and moving down towards Sloviansk. But they're not making much progress. Again, they're being hit by a Ukrainian resistance, which is very stiff. And they're also wary of going too far ahead of their supply lines. Remember when they were way out in front of themselves in Kyiv? Well, they're trying to learn from that mistake, and so you're not seeing them go very aggressively very far because they don't want to get too far ahead of their food and their fuel.
So, Admiral, internally, Russia has had a series of events which have caused, I mean, more than just a few ripples of an earthquake in the Kremlin, both militarily and diplomatically. And now with Finland and Sweden on the verge of joining NATO, perhaps, we keep hearing that there's been no communication from the top levels of the Pentagon with the top levels militarily in Russia. Is that still the case? And if it is still the case, what's the level of apprehension in Washington about no communication?
Still the case, but not for lack of trying. I mean, we continue to make an effort to reach out to top Russian leadership. We think that right now, and frankly has been for the last 2 months, it's exactly the time when we should be having top communications with them about what's going on. So it's not for lack of trying. We'll keep trying to do that, to talk to senior Russian leaders. And then, you know, as for what's the concern, I mean, it is exactly without that, having that ability to have a dialogue with them about what we're seeing and trying to get them to do the right thing here. You know, this war can just keep going on and on and on. And I think as the efforts now become concentrated on a smaller geographic area, particularly the Donbass, a part of the country where both the Ukrainians and the Russians have been fighting now for 8 years. Both of them know the terrain. Both of them know the roads, the railways, the towns, the villages. This could become a bit of a long slog. You're already starting to see a heavy reliance on artillery. This is why we're sending howitzers in, because long-range fires in a flat, open area, much like Kansas, that's important. And you're seeing both sides use that. And when you start getting into an artillery duel, if that's what this ends up becoming, it could end up being a much longer conflict than I think anybody wants.
So we're just a couple of days beyond Victory Day, and we heard from Vladimir Putin then, and he didn't make any big pronouncements.
Right.
But as you assess, the Pentagon assesses what he said, what sort of hidden messages, was there anything in there that he did say that worried you?
The thing I think that concerned us was the maximalist rhetoric. He kept referring to Nazis and getting rid of Nazis in Ukraine, and of course we know that's just a ridiculous claim. But he might believe that, or if he doesn't believe it, he wants his people to believe that. So he's still couching the war in these very broad, almost strategic tones, even though from a realistic perspective, it's really just a tactical fight right there in the Donbass. And you heard the Director of National Intelligence testify to this earlier this week. What we don't know is, does he just focus on the Donbass and the east and the south and then call it a day? Or does he want to move elsewhere, farther, bigger goals inside Ukraine? And when he talks about neo-Nazis and Nazis in Ukraine, it doesn't give us any comfort.
Do they have the capability of doing that, though, Admiral? I mean, they haven't been able to nail down the Donbass for 6-7 years.
Yeah, they have definitely struggled. I mean,
they have the capabilities of killing innocent civilians.
They do.
With dumb weaponry.
They do, and they are.
But do they really have the capability of expanding elsewhere?
If they do, they haven't shown it so far. I mean, they have been struggling on the battlefield. But you have to remember, Joe, I mean, they still have the numerical advantage. They outnumber the Ukrainians in forces. They certainly have a lot of capabilities left in them. In fact, I would go so far as to say, of the amassed combat power that Mr. Putin had available to him pre-February 24th, he still has a lot of it left.